Hi everyone. I have got to be honest. I'm having a hard time with what I just found out. It's something I didn't know happened. And it happened back when I was 14 years old, when I innocently had a boyfriend from church. I had no idea until 10 days ago that the predator pastor who ended up assaulting me just a few years after my 14th birthday had met with my boyfriend at 14 years old, called him into his office at the church, and basically threatened him and told him that he could not be my boyfriend. He could not like me and to leave me alone. Now, I wouldn't have known this except for my old boyfriend asked me to contact him through Facebook because he felt like he had something really important to tell me. And when I got on the phone with him, the first thing he said to me was, if you ever get to take that man to court, I want to testify on your behalf. And I thought, what? Why? Like how? What's going on? And then he told me what happened. He got called into that office and told off by this pastor and then kicked out. And at the time, he didn't really know what to think of it. And he's just now sharing the story with me because he realized after watching my videos that that man was obsessed with me and pinpointed me at 14 years old. And what he did in the next few years put me in the position to be under his thumb, so to speak, and had me isolated and eventually sexually abused by him. That's premeditation, that's manipulative, and that's called grooming. And I'm sickened to find this out. You guys, I've had a hard time these past 10 days since finding this out. This has been a little difficult for me to get on here and talk to you guys and tell you about everything that I've been through. And it's been really hard to hear from you, but I'm thankful for all of you victims, survivors actually, who have reached out to me. But I've been really shocked to find out there are so many other victims at the hands of this man or pastors under his leadership, which tells me that's a very toxic and abusive culture they have there. And it started before this pastor. It started when his father was pastoring. I've heard from 2 women who were sexually assaulted in the church back then when his father was leading that church by 2 different pastors. These women were brave enough to come forward and tell me about it. And it just sickens me. One of them was 8 years old. And that was already so heart-wrenching when she told me that. 8 years old. And then I find out 10 days ago that when I was 14, this pastor had his eyes on me. He just got to the church. He was just starting to pastor that church. And he chose me, I guess. And then by 15, I was babysitting for his children. And by 16, he had it arranged where I would be living with them because of my household when I was younger. I'll be honest, you guys, it's been really hard these past 10 days. I think these past 10 days have been harder than even back in January when I started this podcast. Because to find out that this was premeditated and that he had his eyes on me when I was 14, it's disgusting. It's just so perverted. And it seems like every few days I hear from another victim. A young man who reached out to me to tell me, when he and I were liking each other at the age of 14, he went on to tell me that he was also sexually abused at that time by a different pastor on that staff. And he's the second boy that I have heard about being molested by this particular pastor. And that pastor of that church is still in leadership. He's still serving today. I wonder how many more victims there are. If you're watching this and you are a victim from any of those pastors from that church, you really need to come forward. Even if it's past the statute of limitations, that's okay, because our voices need to be heard and our story matters. And it matters because we need to stop this cycle of abuse it's gone unchecked for way too long. No one has been held accountable. And it's wrong. So we need to come forward. And especially if you're a victim in these past few years, or you are right now, you need to come forward. And if you don't have someone to talk to, go to your doctor. Maybe make an appointment with a professional. Talk about it. You're more than welcome to reach out to me. I say that all the time because back when it was happening to me, I didn't feel like I had anybody to talk to. I mean, I was threatened constantly to take it to my grave, and that's what I thought I had to do. But now that I'm older and wiser, and I've gone through years of counseling, EMDR therapy, I'm in a better headspace, and I'm better off now than I was then, mentally and emotionally. And I can help by listening to you. And if you want to reach out to me, you can email me, you can message me on Facebook, but this abuse will continue until it's dealt with. And we are responsible for what we know. We are responsible to tell what happened to us. You need to do it in a safe space, but it needs to be talked about. And I just want to encourage you to do that. This has been really hard for me, you guys. I mean, I'm revisiting a lot of trauma from my past. I started in January, and it's just a podcast. I started to share my story, to talk about the trauma, but also talk about healing and freedom and forgiveness. But wow, I never knew I would be hearing from so many victims. This is so much bigger than me. And it's so much bigger than you. And we've got to come forward and tell the truth and not be afraid of retaliation or be afraid of threats or be afraid that we won't be believed. Listen, there are too many stories with too many details from people for me not to believe that they are true. I don't know too many people who would want to just call someone up and say, hey, this happened to me, or me get on a podcast and talk about this without there being truth. So we need you to come forward. I have a lot of professionals on my end. I have a lot of support. And even with all the support, these past 10 days have been rough, you guys. It has affected me immensely. To think at 14, he had his eyes on me, and within a few short years, I'd be under his thumb, isolated, living with his family, and basically being brainwashed to believe I had no one to tell and I had no choices. I couldn't make any decisions for myself. That's what it felt like. That's what I believed. And then the whole idea of take it to your grave was just repeated to me constantly. And that's what I planned on doing because I didn't see the point in talking about it. But wow, man, I wish I would have. I wish I'd have come forward earlier. So since I've lived through this experience and I held this in for 38 years, I'm telling you, there's so much freedom with truth. I made an appointment Friday to go back and talk to my psychologist because this is really, I'm revisiting trauma. And at the point when I heard 10 days ago that this pastor had his eyes on me at 14, that has just done something to me. That has just disgusted me. And it's bothered me a lot. It's interfered with my sleep and with a lot of things. So I'm going to go Friday and talk to somebody. I believe in counseling. I believe in talking to someone who is educated, who has the tools to help. Absolutely. But come out with the truth so that this abuse can stop. It's time for accountability. It's time for people who are in positions of power, who are secretly predators, to be held accountable. It's time. It needs to stop. And I wouldn't want my daughter or my granddaughter to be around anyone like this. And I've been discussing grooming and what that looks like so that you can be educated and understand how this happens. So that you can be careful with your daughters and your sons, both. Whether it's a coach, a teacher, a pastor, whoever it is, if they are in a position of authority, it makes it really confusing for victims to come forward. It's very hard. And unless you live through it, it's probably really hard to understand. But if you are living through it, I am here. You can email me at inherwords.ihw@gmail.com. Or if you're watching this on Facebook, private message me. I'll get together with you guys. I will sit and talk to you about it. And I want to start a support group for all of us. But we need to come forward, even if it was many, many years later. We are responsible to come forward with truth so there aren't any other victims. Thank you for watching.